Today is Sunday, January 31st, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. Today is January 31st, the last day of January. 1 year ago today, the United States Senate was laying the ground rules for the impeachment trial of President Trump. 1 year later, the United States Senate is taking up the very same task. Now, there are quite a few differences between the two impeachments. For starters, Donald Trump isn't the president right now, and to many, that is enough to make the proceedings rather foolhardy. A lot of Republicans in Congress say the whole thing is at odds with President Biden's articulated desire to bring the nation back together. Democrats, on the other hand, argue that we cannot possibly skip past the seditious attack on the nation's capital of January 6th. Coming up this morning, we're going to talk it over with Michigan Senior Senator Democrat Debbie Stabenow. We'll also ask her about whether the federal government can do anything to break the logjam on coronavirus vaccine availability. And for weeks now, I've been wanting to have a conversation with the new prosecutor in Washtenaw County. Clearly, Ellie Savitt sees a very different role for a prosecutor. It seems just about every week he's announced something that his office will no longer do. For example, they'll no longer request cash bail. He's doing away with the notion of zero tolerance policies. And he's not interested in charging cases involving sex and money transactions between consenting adults. Is he just deciding which laws he likes and which he doesn't? Or is he forging a new kind of criminal justice reform? We'll ask him that this morning on Flashpoint.
All right, we're going to start from the newsroom for a variety of reasons that I won't bore you with. The more important thing is that Senator Debbie Stabenow is in Washington and joining us today. Good to have her back with us again on Flashpoint. And Senator, I want to start with the fact that 1 week from tomorrow, you and your colleagues will take up the House case against President Trump. And I guess for starters, I just want to ask what your confidence level is that this is actually the legal and appropriate thing to try to do to impeach someone who is no longer in office.
Well, Devin, it's always great to be with you, and it's absolutely legal. This has happened before. And of course, the process started while he was president. Donald Trump was president, but this has been done before. And it is required for us to dispose of the impeachment article that was presented to us. So the trial is necessary to do. And it's interesting because it's unique. It's different than the impeachment regarding the Ukrainian call with the president and so on, where there were questions of what happened, what was said, you know, who was there, what was that. We're all witnesses. I mean, we were there. You know, nobody has to tell us what happened. We were there, and everyone has seen what the president at the time said. And there's no question in my mind in terms of his inflammatory language and the insurrection that occurred. And it was an attack on our Capitol and our democracy, trying to stop the recognition of the legal election that occurred for President of the United States.
The case that was presented in the House, though, included no witnesses and no what I think a normal court would refer to would suggest was evidence. Even in cut and dry cases where everybody knows that this guy robbed the bank, the due process means that evidence has to be presented. Did the House bungle that by not presenting witnesses and evidence in their effort to try to get this to the Senate as quickly as they could?
I think they handled this well in that, again, this is a very different circumstance. You can talk to members of our House delegation who were trapped in the gallery with gas masks on, with Capitol Police, guns drawn, trying to protect them from people coming in through the gallery doors. And so everyone knows what happened. To me, it's a judgment of, do you believe that the President of the United States incited an insurrection and was the person that encouraged this effort to undermine our democracy and to stop the recognition of a duly counted election? I mean, there's a fundamental question. It's a different kind of question. And I think it's not like a court where you're debating, did a crime happen? What happened? Who was there? What did you see? The question is, Was this right or wrong? Did it violate the Constitution? Did
But
it?
we don't really have a legal system that runs along the lines of, well, everybody knows what happened. I mean, don't we need to, for proper procedure and for the historical record, to actually have a case made against the president that so far hasn't been made, at least in a formal way?
Well, first of all, this is not a legal court, as you know. It's a
That's true.
different rules. And the House will present their case. The president, the former president, will have an opportunity to present his. We paused, even though under the Constitution, we could start the day after we received the article of impeachment. We paused for 2 weeks for due process to give time for the former president to put together his case. And so he certainly can offer witnesses. The House can certainly do that as well. We'll see how this proceeds. But I would say that the evidence was in full view. What was said by the former president when he was president was all over the papers, the media, social media. We were there. We saw what happened. We saw the damage. We saw the deaths. I mean, right now, 6 deaths and counting the injuries to people. And it's a question of, is this serious enough to convict the person who instigated it?
Seeing that you only had 5 Republicans vote along agreeing to proceeding with the proceedings, does this feel then like a futile thing? No matter how important you think it might be to carry out, does it feel like the president is not going to be convicted by the Senate?
Well, we have a responsibility to do our duty in terms of having the trial, disposing of the article of impeachment, and voting. And I think it will be tough to get to 2/3 of the Senate to convict. It is really up to whether or not the incoming now minority leader, Mitch McConnell, decides to move forward or not in terms of what it looked like he might do at the beginning. But regardless of that, we can't paper over this. I mean, this is someone fomenting violence and a revolution against the United States of America and our form of government. So to move on to heal the country, I believe you have to have accountability and you have to have justice.
Well, speaking to healing the country, though, I don't know how you feel about what your fellow Michigander Jerry Ford did years ago in pardoning Richard Nixon. But the argument then was made that, look, it was the best way to move forward. Joe Biden has talked about trying to bring everybody together, and some Republicans have said, well, you're not going to do that by trying to impeach this man who's no longer in office. Is there any argument to be made that it might be the best way for Democrats to reach their hand across the aisle?
We have a very divided country and divided state, and that's a very big concern of mine. But we don't address this by saying people who instigate violence and insurrection and death against the United States of America and our people should somehow not be held accountable. And I think it's very different. I mean, whatever happened with Richard Nixon, you know, he listened to Republican leaders who said to him, you need to step down, and did. And it was a very different situation than the violence, the destruction, the division that's been created by the big lie that somehow our election in the United States of America was not legal under our processes and democracy. This is a very, very different field. The impact's very different. And I believe we need to stand up and do everything we can to bring accountability and then reach across the aisle. I work with Republicans all the time, you know, putting together a huge effort for food and farm and agriculture and the Farm Bill, and led the efforts on behavioral health and a lot of the pieces we've done on a bipartisan basis on health reform. The last COVID package, I was very, each of them I've been very involved in. So we cross the aisle all the time.
In the moments that we have left, let's talk about coronavirus, which still, I think, remains the biggest problem on your plate. Even some might argue that impeachment's bigger than that. I don't know that it is to most Americans, and I think that we are starting to see this real disconnect and a problem with states like Michigan complaining that they can't get enough vaccine to get everybody vaccinated in a timely fashion. What can you do at the federal level to open up the logjam?
This is a really important question, Devin. And in fact, we all want our lives back. Our families want our lives back. And to do that, people have to be vaccinated and to be safe so we can open our businesses and our schools and so on. The Biden administration has this as their top priority. I think we all were shocked at how big a mess it was. We thought things were in a little better shape here on the vaccine side. We're proud that one of the major vaccines is in Kalamazoo, Michigan with Pfizer, and we thought things were in better shape. Clearly, the distribution systems, the accountability, the reporting was a terrible mess, but they're very focused on it. And their initial efforts, actually, every day now we're seeing so far about 90,000 fewer cases. I don't think that's by accident. I think it's because we have a president that is and a vice president that are indicating to people that we need to wear masks and we need to make sure we're taking this seriously and social distancing and so on. They're moving forward to get the vaccines out. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do, which is why we need this package. And the package is about vaccines and keeping people safe. It's about direct checks and financial help for folks to survive this. And it's about getting our kids back to school. And if we can do that, we will have turned this thing around and we'll begin to have our lives back.
Let's sure hope so. I got to leave it there. I got to get to a break. But Senator, it's always good to have you on Flashpoint. I know we'll be talking to you again very soon. Stay safe. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more on Flashpoint right after this.